with writing a book is that sooner or later people are going to start claiming that their locations inspired you. And depending on how famous you become, they're going to milk their association with you for all it's worth. Looking at you, Howarth. But how many of these associations are actually grounded in reality? Aren't they all a little bit tenuous? Let's find out.
Lewis Carroll was born as Charles Lutwidge Dodgson in Cheshire in 1832. His father was a vicar in the Church of England, and he moved with his family to this church in Croft-on-Tees. Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to properly film inside the church, but that's fine. I'm used to improvising over obstacles. This one makes you small. Inside the church, you'll find an unusual carving of a grinning cat, and it's popularly believed that this inspired the Cheshire Cat. And this makes sense, because you can imagine the young Lewis Carroll going to church every week with his family and looking at this strange carving and being inspired by it to create the Cheshire Cat. But then things get a little bit more tenuous, because in the 1950s the floorboards of the church were dug up and a number of items discovered underneath, including a pair of white gloves. And who else has white gloves? The White Rabbit! Oh, this must have been what inspired the White Rabbit! Well, that's ignoring the fact that white gloves are as popular in Victorian fashion as a top hat. Moving on. His father also worked at Ripon Cathedral. On a misericord, a type of carved seat, you can find a rabbit going down a hole and a mythical creature called a griffin. And guess what? Both creatures appear in Alice in Wonderland. But here's the thing. Rabbits are extremely common in medieval art, and once you start to deliberately look for them, you begin to see them everywhere. So how do we really know that he was inspired by this? Does he actually say, oh yeah, I went to Ripon Cathedral and I saw this misericord and it inspired me? No. So how do we know? And there's so many wacky mythical creatures in medieval art anyway that it's just a matter of time before you find something that you've seen in a fantasy work. Similarly, in another carving, there's two massive oversized heads which may be inspired Tweedledee and Tweedledum, or maybe not. In Beverley, Minster, you can find a carving of a white rabbit, and obviously this is what inspired the White Rabbit, but again, he never tells us that he was. Maybe we're all just retroactively looking for white rabbits and then finding them everywhere and then claiming that this is what inspired him. But one more thing.
Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird and shun the frumious Bandersnatch.
Okay, enough of that. The Jabberwocky is a nonsense poem. It deliberately doesn't mean anything. But naturally, people have claimed that it's been inspired by all these stories of great dragons or snakes or serpents or wyverns being killed by knights. But maybe he just wanted to write a nonsense poem. You get my point. The thing is, some of them I think have a grain of truth in them, like the Croft-on-Tees church and maybe Ripon Cathedral. But I also think that there's a lot of cottage industries built on rather spurious and tenuous connections, which people insist on regurgitating because they're too lazy to investigate anything. So go ask Alice, I guess, when she's 10 feet tall.
Okay, read away. You want to read your book then?
I haven't got my book, it's in the bag.
Oh shit. Do something dangerous. Lucky boy. Oh, you do look great.
Thank you.
Take one.
Cool, that gave a great spike.